Sullivan's Crossing Season 4 did not end with a declaration. It did not end with a kiss. It did not end with someone running through the rain towards the person they love. Instead, it ended with something much harder to watch. Two people who clearly belong together standing on opposite sides of the same wall, and neither one of them is sure who's supposed to knock first. Hey, what's up everyone? Come back to Breakdown Epic. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Now, I went into this finale expecting closure. I think a lot of people did. After everything this season put Maggie and Cal through, after the honesty, the distance, the Liam complication, the emotional back and forth, after Maggie finally stood at Cal's door and said the most open thing she has said in 4 seasons, I expected the finale to land that, to finish it, to give us a clean, emotional answer. And instead, the show did something braver and, honestly, more frustrating. It left the door open. And I know that is going to divide people. But in my opinion, that choice says more about what this show understands about love than any perfect romantic ending ever could.
Because the truth is, two people who belong together are not always ready at the same time. And that is not failure, that is honesty. Let me walk you through why. The episode opens with Maggie arriving at the outpost, and immediately you can feel where things stand. She tells Edna that Cal has been keeping his distance. She wants to fix things. She just does not know how to do that if he will not talk to her. And I want to sit with that for a second. Because after episode 9, after Maggie finally stopped running, after she showed up without conditions and offered herself clearly, Cal pulling back is not surprising, but it is still painful. Because here is a woman who spent an entire season circling around the truth, and the moment she finally lands on it, the other person is not ready to receive it. That is real. That is how love actually works sometimes. And the episode understands that. It does not rush past the discomfort. It lets Maggie sit inside that uncertainty while the rest of the crossing moves around her, preparing for the ceremony. Now, let me talk about the ceremony itself, because I think it does something much bigger than people might realize on first watch.
Maggie stands at the microphone and speaks about her family's relationship with the land. She says they will not always get it right, but they will not stop trying. And the second she says that line, the episode stops being just about land. It becomes about her. That sentence is Maggie publicly declaring who she has decided to be. Not a woman who runs, not a woman who hides behind old confusion. A woman who stays, a woman who tries even when the outcome is not guaranteed. This is not a love confession. It is something bigger. It is an identity confession. She is telling the entire community that she is here, that she is choosing this place, that she is choosing this version of herself. And honestly, I think that is more powerful than any romantic scene could have been. Then Frank comes up and talks about opening our hearts so they can be healed. And if the episode is literally called Healing Hearts and Frank Cranebear is standing at a microphone saying those exact words, then the show is delivering its thesis statement right there in the open. This finale is not about two people resolving their romance.
It is about whether wounded people can open back up after the things that hurt them. Now, I want to rewind for a second because there is a scene in this episode that honestly might be my favorite in the entire season, and it involves Cal doing something that almost nobody noticed. Cal protected Ben. Here's what happened. Quincy apologizes to Cal for accusing Ben of stealing the watch. He feels guilty about it, and Cal just lets him. He does not correct Quincy. He does not say, actually, Ben did take it. He absorbs the moral discomfort of letting Quincy believe the wrong version of events because that version gives Ben a better chance. Wait, let me make sure you caught that. Cal deliberately chose to look slightly wrong in front of someone so that a teenager he cares about could get a break. That is who Cal Jones is when nobody is watching. Not a man who demands credit, not a man who insists on being right. A man who quietly rearranges the situation so that someone more fragile has a better shot. And Frank validating that choice, saying you did what you thought was best, is the most significant thing that happens in the entire finale. Because Frank has been the moral compass of this community for 4 seasons.
When Frank says Cal got it right, that is the show telling us Cal is exactly the kind of person worth fighting for. And in my opinion, that scene is the single best argument for why Maggie should never stop trying with him. Now, here is where I want to do a character comparison, because I think it matters. On one side, you have Maggie. She spent the season confused, divided, emotionally torn between past and present. But by the finale, she has arrived at something clear. She knows what she wants. She knows where she belongs. She's no longer running. She's no longer hiding. She made her choice, and she made it publicly without needing a guarantee that it would work. On the other side, you have Cal. He has spent the season absorbing damage quietly, watching, waiting, hoping Maggie would stop being uncertain. And now that she has, he is not rushing to meet her, not because he does not love her, but because trust, once cracked, does not repair just because the other person is finally ready. And that is the heartbreak of this finale. Both of them are in the right emotional place individually, they are just not there at the same time. Now, let me ask a what if here, because I think it matters.
What if the open ending is not avoidance from the writers? What if it is the point? What if the whole message of the finale is that healing does not happen on a schedule? That you can do the right thing, say the right thing, show up honestly, and the other person still needs more time. Not because they do not care, but because they care too much to pretend the hurt is already gone. I think that is exactly what the show is saying. And honestly, I respect it, even though it stings. Now, let me zoom into one more detail, because I think it matters a lot. Quincy telling Maggie she should stay on full-time when she gets her license. That line changes everything about how we read her decision. Because up until now, some part of the audience might have still seen Maggie's presence at the crossing as temporary, as a detour from her real career, as something she would eventually leave behind once things got resolved. This moment kills that idea. Quincy is not offering her a temporary role. He is offering her a future, a career built from real work, a position that proves the sacrifice she made when she stayed in Season 3 was not a surrender of her ambitions. It was the beginning of a different version of them. That matters, because Maggie's difficult decision in this finale is not really about Cal.
It is about this life, this place, this career, this community, this version of herself. She is choosing all of it. And Cal being part of that picture is something she wants desperately. But the show is smart enough to recognize that choosing your life is not the same thing as choosing a person. You can do one fully and still have to wait for the other. Now, I am going to commit to a prediction here, and if I am wrong, I'll own it. I believe Sullivan's Crossing gets a Season 5. And I believe that season opens with Cal's walls finally starting to crack. Not immediately, not in some grand gesture in episode 1, but slowly, through small moments, through seeing Maggie fully settled into her new position, through watching her show up day after day without expectation, through realizing that the woman standing in front of him now is not the same woman who was unsure 6 months ago. And I think that slow rebuild will be more satisfying than any finale resolution could have been, because earned reconciliation always hits harder than convenient timing. Now, before I finish, let me give you the rapid-fire breakdown of why this finale works even when it frustrates you. Maggie stops running and chooses the crossing publicly. Cal protects Ben without telling anyone, proving exactly who he is. Frank
validates Cal in the most meaningful way possible. Quincy offers Maggie a real future, not a temporary one. The land ceremony becomes a metaphor for Maggie's own commitment. The ending stays open because healing does not follow a script. Ben and Tracy remain unresolved because systems do not always protect the right people. And the crossing itself stands as the emotional anchor holding all of it together. That is not a weak ending. That is a foundation. Now, here is the quiet part. If Cal saw what we saw in this episode, if he saw Maggie at that microphone choosing this life without conditions, if he understood that she is no longer standing there because of him, but because of herself, then the wall he built is already shaking. He just has not opened the door yet. But I think he will. Not because the story forces him to, because Maggie finally gave him a reason to believe it is safe. And that is what makes this finale braver than the one I was hoping for. It trusts the audience to understand that the best love stories do not always end with both people ready at the same moment. Sometimes one person arrives first and waits, and that wait is not weakness, it is faith. But anyway, that is my full breakdown of Sullivan's Crossing Season 4, Episode 10, Healing Hearts, and why I think this finale planted something much bigger than a simple ending. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think Maggie's decision to stay is enough for Cal to finally open back up? And do you think this show deserves a Season 5 to finish the story properly? I will catch you in the next one.